Today on episode number 351 of the School of Podcasting's morning announcements, I have a question for you about podcast Chit Chat. I'm going to tell you my experience with a cheap lighting kit, and we're going to talk with Nick Sueberling of Start Talking and Recording Today.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005 and bringing my 20 plus years of technical training to this microphone, I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson, thanking you so very, and by that I mean very much, for tuning in. If you're new to the show, this is where we talk about all things podcasting, from planning to recording to promoting to monetizing and all points in between. If you'd like to join in on the conversation, I cannot tell you how happy that would make me. You can email me. Yes, I check my email. I do. It's dave@schoolofpodcasting.com. You can call in your comments courtesy of podcastvoicemail.com. That number is 888-563-3228, or you can click on the little feedback button out at the website. Or if you're more of a typing person, just go out to schoolofpodcasting.com and leave a comment. Well, how's it going? Spring is here, and I'm very happy about that. All right, that's interesting. Always turn off your cell phone when you start podcasting, just for the record. All right, you know what? I'm leaving that in. There's my first tip for the day. Turn off your cell phone. Turn down your speakers. If you're using that, the Gmail thing, the desktop notifier, turn that thing off. I hear so many podcasts with doo-doo in the background or whatever that noise is. And we're going to let's talk about that up front. And that is starting off your podcast. Obviously, thanks to my good friends at Verizon Wireless, they've interrupted my podcast. And no, I don't want to take a survey. And I want to talk about that. And that is, I've always said, my new thing about this is you should always start with your best content first. And I also say that people like to connect with the person behind the microphone. And so what I've been telling people, and this is where I want your opinion on this, is I'm now saying do that at the end. And here's why I think you should do it, or at least toward the end. And the reason for that is if someone has made it to the end of your podcast, they are more than likely interested in the personal side of you. Whereas if you leave that up at the very beginning, then that person, a brand new person, doesn't know who you are. And I want to play you a clip. And I'm really kind of nervous about this because I'm just going to explain my thoughts here. I'm not putting down. In fact, I'm actually subscribed to this podcast. I just found out about it. It's called the Super Secret Podcast for Young Husbands. You can find it at thesecretcast.com. And I saw it was in a Google group. Somebody recommended it. And I thought, oh, cool, maybe this is somebody I can reach out to. And maybe I'm doing a podcast about marriage. Maybe we can cross-promote. Sounds good. Went over and listened to it. And they did the typical, hey, we do this, the thing I do. The contact information, our website, what it is, blah, blah, blah. Started off great. And then I was ready for all right, we're done with the little intro thing. Now it's time for meat and potato stuff. And this particular episode was called Marriage Myths. And it's episode number 210. So these boys have been doing it for a while. But here's my thing. Let me just play the first kind of official information of their podcast was this.
So to start weekly updates, whatever, I have a fun story to tell, a continuation of finale of the last 2 weeks, I guess, about our van key, the quest for the key to our minivan. Last week, I guess I told you that we went and bought one, right? Did I share that?
You were going to have it towed there.
And he went on to say, now I did learn some stuff, like it's actually cheaper than you might think to have a key replaced. And it was kind of interesting. It's one of those stories that it was kind of a Bill Cosby story, like, when you have the weird cousin with the hair and it's only, that thing where you hope that somebody has it, the same thing that you do. But my thought was, I was really ready. I was like, ooh, cool, a marriage podcast. I want to think marriage. And instead I got van key. And I was like, no, I got to sit through van key. All right, I'll sit through van key. And so that's me. And sometimes I think I'm just like, Dave, are you in that much of a hurry that you can't sit through a 3-minute van key story. So if you can, go out to schoolofpodcasting.com/351. I would like your opinion on this, is because it seems like we all do it. We all throw the, hey, well, how was your weekend kind of thing at the beginning. And I'm just starting to think that that's really probably not a great strategy. And I would love your input on that. So let's all kind of chime in together. Go to schoolofpodcasting.com/351 and leave a comment. I like the comment thing because we can all see what each other are saying. But if you want to call them in, it's 888-563-3228. Or if you want to click on the feedback button out there, you can do that as well. Would love your thoughts on that.
If you like what you hear, then go tell somebody. If you like what you hear, then go tell somebody. If you like what you hear, then go tell somebody. Oh, Lord, go tell somebody. Yeah, go tell someone.
All right, next up, want to share some insights that I've been doing. Last month or so, I was playing with Blog Talk Radio after saying how horrible it is. And the one thing I wanted to kind of test the waters on, number one, I mentioned it here a couple of times, but really I didn't promote it a whole lot. And the thing was, if you go to their website, and one of the things they're selling people is that we have tons of traffic on this website, tons and tons and tons. And by that, they mean tons of information of just, bazillions of people visiting the website. And that's true. They also have bazillions of podcasts over there. And so they make it sound like you're going to have this trickle down effect. And so I did a podcast for a month on Saturday, late afternoons. And I got 33 listeners that listened to it after the fact. I had a whopping 12 listeners. This is over 4 episodes. And the most I had listening live was 5. Okay, I had no live callers except Ray Ortega, who was nice enough to call in, and my wife on the one. So nobody called in. And these, again, were all at 11 o'clock. One was at 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. So the hey, massive traffic on the website, at least it doesn't turn into listeners and people calling in on a Saturday. Now, of course, they want you to spend the $50 a month so you can use their prime time and podcast around 7 o'clock at night is kind of the gist I get. But I just want to say from my travels, at least on a Saturday, I didn't get exactly what I would call a huge audience on that. Now, on the other hand, Spreaker is another live streaming kind of system that has an online software that you can play your music and things like that right there live. And I'm finding that here again, number one, I'm not getting a huge amount of listens, again, just from being on the website. I don't believe that I had any live callers. I know I had nobody in the chat window. And I, again, did this today at about noon. And I've done a couple here. And then the other thing I did was I uploaded last week's episode about podcast success with Nick, the guy that got to go to a college class for free because of his podcast. If you haven't listened to that, go over to schoolofpodcasting.com/350. And I threw the exact same file on Spreaker to see what kind of traffic I would get. And I got 11 listens to that for free, but again, you're not going to get huge amounts. Now, I made a quick video about this. You can see it if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/DaveTube, right? Schoolofpodcasting.com/DaveTube. And Eileen Smith from Basic Blogging Tips. Let me get that right. Basic Blog Tips. She put a mention on here. Now, Eileen uses Spreaker a lot. And she says it's been good for her. She said, if I compare my Spreaker stats to my iTunes stats using Libsyn, Spreaker wins hands down. Fortunately for me, I never used Blog Talk Radio. And thanks to my advice, she said. But yeah, Blog Talk Radio says they have 40 million downloads a month. And I want to say, how many of those are not live? They have 15,000 active hosts and 1,800 episodes a day. So they make it sound like there's all this traffic and people are just there to listen. And I'm just saying, from my travels, not so much. So if you're interested, if I had to pick one of the two, and I'm actually working on another secret, double secret probation system that I'm working on as well, that I'll probably be reporting on. I'm interested in this whole live thing because I have so many people that ask me about it. I myself am not a huge live fan, but I have another system I'm looking into, and I'll be talking about that in the future as well. But if I had to say between these two, I definitely like Spreaker better. The audio was better. Their chat system actually worked. I could embed it on my website, and their actually embedded player worked better than Blog Talk Radio. If you're interested in Spreaker, go over to schoolofpodcasting.com/Spreaker. It's SPREAKER. So I'll keep you informed as I continue to play with my live broadcasting experience. And if you want to know when I'm live, you need to follow me on Twitter, which is at Learn2Podcast. So at Learn2Podcast. All right, next up, don't you hate it when you do something dumb? I do. And I always tell people, don't use free stuff. Try not to chintz out too much, things like that. And that's what makes the Audio-Technica 2100 USB microphone so great, because it looks like you chimped out on it. Chimped or cheaped out. If you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/2100, it's a great microphone. It's USB, and it works on XLR as well. And so I have been playing with video and looking into lighting, and I found it seemed like anytime I wanted any kind of lighting, it was going to be $300 for basically what are called soft boxes, for like a 2 softbox set. And I saw some that were around $150, and some of them had green screens and stuff. And I came across this one from ePhoto. It's a 2,000-watt lighting studio. They call it a portrait kit with a carrying case, 2 soft boxes, 2 light heads, and 10 fluorescent bulbs. And it was basically $105. I'm like, wow, that's the lowest I've ever seen. And if you're going to buy something that's the lowest you've ever seen, you might want to find somebody who has one and ask them, because while this system works, it is not built for the long haul. In fact, I'll give them credit. It was very well packed. Everything was in these little cardboard boxes. All the bulbs had styrofoam around them to make sure they didn't break and things like that. I took it out very gingerly, but nonetheless, the stands there's a kind of a hinge, and the hinge is made out of plastic, and it did make the trip, basically. I have to, I'm going to probably super glue it. I have an email into the company to say, hey, can I get a new one of these, or what's the story on that? So if you're looking into video, and the most important part of video is actually audio, and I got that down, but I wanted some better lighting, although I'm not sure why, because when I turn this thing on, if you've ever met me, number one, my hair is now more gray than it was black. I quit dyeing it, so my hair is rather light, and my skin complexion, I'm pretty sure my father was a Smurf. If you actually turn my wrist over, you can see so much of my veins. I actually am a slight hint of light blue, hence the Smurf reference, but I'm very pale. And so when I turn this thing on, I almost, I think you can almost see through me at this point. I look like Casper, basically. And so I'm not sure I need the lighting, but I would not recommend the ePhoto VL9026S 2000 watt lighting studio portrait kit, even though it's really, really cheap, because unfortunately you get what you pay for. And I always say you pay for things in time or money. And so I didn't pay as much money out, but now my guess is I'm probably going to end up going back to UPS if I have to ship this back, or, I already lost some time getting some super glue, which I went out and bought today to glue the thing back together. So you're either going to pay in time or money. I will keep you posted as I start to use these. You'll see them show up on my YouTube channel. If you go out to, again, schoolofpodcasting.com/DaveTube, that'll take you over to my YouTube channel. All right, lastly, Nick Sueberling has a podcast, Start Talking and Recording Today. And when it first came out, I was kind of like, really? Really? Do we need another podcast about podcasting? And I got to tell you, I'm glad that Nick didn't listen to people like me because, and I always say this to people, you have your background, you have your experience, and you have you. You're going to be different. And I got to tell you, it's interesting because Nick has brought some things to the table that I'm like, wow, that's really cool. His interviews are great. And when it first started, I was kind of like, really? Because he was telling people to use Blogger to podcast. If you had to podcast, and I'm like, Blogger? Really? Not sure about that. But he was talking about free. So it's good stuff. He also, you'll hear in this interview, his wife is a graphic artist. And if you're looking for podcast cover art, you can find her over at podcastcovers.com. And with that, I will turn it over. You'll hear how Nick kind of it took him a little bit to find his voice. And that's the beautiful thing about podcasting. If you start a podcast, there's no rule that says you can't change it. I've talked about that in the past. But Nick is a great guy. He's another fellow Ohioan. And here is my interview with Nick Sueberling of Start Talking and Recording Today. All right. Well, joining me, having a fun time on a Monday night from SPNT.TV and the StartPodcastingNow.com podcast, it is Nick Sueberling. And Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dave. It's awesome. I'm glad you gave me the invite.
Well, it's I like your podcast. I definitely want to say that right up front, mainly because on one hand, when you first came out, I thought, okay, here's another podcast about podcasting, and you were kind of talking about feed burner and kind of the same old, but you've since then kind of taken it in a new direction. So I kind of wanted to talk about that, but let's start off by talking about kind of your background a little bit. I know you have you went to school and you studied telecommunications, so tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. I spent 4.5 years in college at Bowling Green State University here in lovely Flat, Ohio, Northwest Ohio. Went to school there for their broadcast journalism program. Started off as a journalism major, actually. And then I found out that that's an awful lot of writing, and I had no desire to write. So for me, I just wanted to be on the radio. In fact, my goal, my aspirations in college were to be the next Marty Brennaman. And for those of you who don't know who that is, he is the Hall of Fame play-by-play broadcaster for the Cincinnati Reds. And so for me, that's why I went to school at BG. They had a great student radio program that offered people the chance to call baseball, football, basketball games on the air as a freshman. And so that's what really attracted me to that program. I thought about going to Ohio University because they've got a world famous broadcasting school down there. But nope, I went to BG, got on the air as a freshman. In fact, I was on the air my first weekend at college doing some sports reports. So that's where that all started.
Obviously now you've started your own podcasting network. What from that experience have you brought over into podcasting?
Well, first and foremost, it's the thing that I learned the most at school that I've now brought over with my podcasting is my comfort behind the microphone. A lot of people when they first get started in podcasting, they're nervous, they're shaky, they're jittery, and they're just the microphone presence isn't there. And so for me, I found right off the bat, and I was this way at school. I was nervous the first few times I was on radio. But now I've gotten to the point where I can get behind the microphone. I can talk freely, normally. I'm not worried about my pauses. That's pretty much the thing that I've taken from that. Now, I've learned how to edit audio based on my time at school. I wish, had I known then what I know now, I would have learned how to do video editing. But no, mostly microphone presence and audio production.
Tell us about, how many podcasts are on SBNT.TV?
Oh, I lost track. I think at one point it was 11. I think 7 of them I'm actually producing. Or either I'm doing the audio production part of it, or I'm actually hosting and doing the audio production of it. Scott Island, who's been on your show before, a good friend of mine, he's on our network, so it's been cool to interact with him. But we've got about I think it's last count was 11 different podcasts from sports to entertainment, and I dabble a little bit into the technology world. I'm not as techy as some of those guys in those tech podcasts are, but the whole reason for me with joining the network is because I should say starting the network, is I listen to a wide range of podcasts. So I'm a big sports guy, but at the same time, like I enjoy listening to Twit. Like to me, I think that's a really cool. I think the reason I listen to that podcast the most though is the production quality. But still, it's an entertaining show and it's got a lot of information in it. So I just wanted to create podcasts from a wide range and bring them all together. So that's what SPNT. Our tagline is bringing sports, entertainment, and technology podcasts together.
Now, when you brought Scott on, how many T's did you have to cross and I's did you have to dot to make sure that everybody's expectations were on the same page?
Literally, Scott was my first guy.
Okay.
So it was more, hey, let's do this just to help with the promotional side of things. Like for me, it's not as anything as far as I'll be honest, SPNT is not a moneymaker. It's just. But at the same time, like I told Scott, do your own affiliate deals, and if somehow, some way, we manage to get some sponsors here for SPNT through all the shows, I will be fair and give you the necessary, I split it up evenly, that sort of thing. But no, Scott's been really cool to work with, and for a long time there, he kind of ran into a wall with his podcast, and I just kept motivating him, like, dude, you're doing a good job, keep it up. And so I'm really surprised and happy for what he's got going on with his stuff.
Very cool. Now, the one podcast I definitely want to talk about is Start Talking and Recording Today. And, of course, you can find that over at startpodcastingnow.com. And so what I wanted to get your intake on, because, number one, I'm glad you started this podcast, and that is some people might go to start a podcast. They go into iTunes, they do a search, and they see, oh, there's already 3, 4, however many people doing a podcast just like mine. And so what pushed you or what kept you going? What stopped you or what got you from actually going, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway?
Well, that's how I was at first. I was, I'm going to do this. I've been podcasting for years, really since 2005, on and off, not like some of the big guys out there. But, I was like, I know how to podcast. I think I offer something different than everybody else. But at the same time, it's the same subject material. So I really struggled with that. So then, in fact, you and I, we talked out in Vegas at New Media Expo. You had me on for 5 and 5? Yeah, 5 and 5. And you asked me about my show and, how it was different. And then at the time I said, my main audience it's for those people like my mom who want to learn how to podcast that are just starting out. And then after about 2 weeks, I scrapped that idea.
Okay.
So then I was like, where can I take this show? And so I said, you know what? There are so many new podcasters out there, so many people that are struggling to promote their shows. At the same time, there are people out there who want to start a podcast but are maybe just a little gun shy. So my goal and my thought process and changing the format to more interview style is to just motivate people that anybody can podcast. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and who knows what you're missing out on. So for me, I bring on the podcasters that have been around for a while, and at the same time, I try to bring on people that are very new to the scene. Like, for instance, my last episode was with Daryl Williams, and he had just released his 3rd episode. I want to get different takes, but at the same time, I want to be that person that is more motivational.
Well, that's why I loved it, because I was like, it comes on and you're like, today we're going to be interviewing Daryl Williams. And I'm like, Daryl Williams? Who's because it's like, which on one hand, I am hearing a lot of the same people on the same podcast over and over and over, especially if they have a book or something to promote. It's like, here comes so-and-so again. And you kind of like, at some time, you can, kind of hear the same story. But that's something else I wanted to comment on you. When you interviewed Mike Russell and you interviewed Ray Ortega, how do you craft your interviews? Because like I learned more about Ray Ortega from your interview, and I knew he was a cop and some other things because I've had lunch with Ray, but you pulled more out of Ray than I'd heard in a long time, and the same thing with Mike Russell. So how do you go about crafting an interview?
It's funny that you mentioned that. When I was going into those interviews, I knew that people knew who they were, but for me personally, I wanted to get to know them on a more personal level. Yes, it's one thing to know each other through Skype and through Google Hangouts and different types of podcasting avenues, meeting people in New Media Expo. You and I have met multiple times, Dave, but believe it or not, we don't know a whole lot about one another. So for me, the point of start and the point of those interviews is to feel like the next time I see you in person, we are close friends. And so it wasn't so much for the audience's benefit. It was more for my benefit. And it just actually turned out that the audience really enjoyed those type of interviews. So it's more just I try to reach a more personal level. And I think if we're friendly with one another in the community, and we all are, I just think it makes it a more fun community to be a part of.
Very cool. Now,
It's any sense. To be honest, I just kind of wrote out some questions, and I didn't expect it to go the way it did on those two particular interviews, but it worked out.
yeah, I remember listening to it going, I got done, I was like, wow, that was really cool, because it wasn't just your, what kind of microphone are you using and, software. It was like, wow, that was I really got to know that person. And a lot of times that's what you're kind of trying to get at. When you hear a podcast after a while, you're kind of like, well, I wonder what that guy's like when he's not behind a microphone. And
So
you gave it.
like the Barbara Walters of podcasting.
That's
now.
right. That's it. You go on Nick's show, you end up crying.
I hope not.
Well, originally my dad, it'll be great.
Oh, that's funny.
So the other thing I really like about your show is I believe you just call it the rapid fire.
Yep.
Where did you just say I'm going to, because I think I saw it on ESPN? Is that, no, they call it the hot seat.
Yeah, they call it the Budweiser hot seat or whatever you want, whoever sponsors it that month or whatever. But to be honest, I just I was like, what would be entertaining? Like for me, if I were interviewing somebody like if I ever get the chance to interview Leo Laporte, like those questions are, I want to know what he's listening to like right now. And it's along the lines of what you're doing with yours, the last 5 and 5, but at the same time, like I think it'd be more fun to incorporate other elements, more personal elements. So like, for instance, a couple of times I've asked people what their favorite pizza topping was or their favorite movie and maybe an embarrassing moment that they've had while podcasting, which is awfully tough to ask that question to somebody who's only done 3 episodes. but for somebody like Ray Ortega or, Daniel Lewis or Daniel Clark, those guys have been producing tons of episodes. And so I think those questions benefit those guys. You get a lot more responses or a better response from those guys. But no, it was more just kind of the rapid fire segment kind of, I didn't expect to get the response from that either. So it's been really cool. And at the same time, like I don't want to use up the same questions. So I'm finding it more and more difficult to come up with some more cool questions that not everybody's asking one another.
Well, and again, that's what I like about it. It's not your typical kind of stuff. So awesome. Well, speaking of typical stuff, I do want to talk about some typical stuff.
All right.
So you have been podcasting for a while. Looking back, what were some of the biggest hurdles that you've overcome?
Oh man, that is a good one. Well, for instance, believe it or not, my show Who Day Weekly, which we've had a lot of success with here in the last couple of years. I was in fact not the host of that show for the first season of it. I had, believe it or not, for somebody who was on real radio in college, I still had doubts about myself behind a microphone. And so, believe it or not, my first season of Who Day Weekly, I was not the host. I enlisted the help of a friend who is a Packers fan from Cleveland, but he's more on there. He was my best man at my wedding. Like he and I, we grew up in the same radio program at BG. And, he still works in radio today. So he's more comfortable behind the mic. He's got a great personality. And I just kind of filled in as the producer, more of like a color analyst. I filled in the details. And so after the first season, he couldn't really commit to doing it anymore. So for me, the biggest hurdle was I've got this show. We've done about 20 episodes. I don't want it to stop. The only way for it to keep going is for me to just get up behind the mic and do it. And so that was the biggest hurdle for me, getting behind the mic and trying to find co-hosts, other Bengals fans that would want to be on the show with me, because at the same time, I don't particularly like hearing my voice for 40 minutes. So that was probably the biggest hurdle, is just getting comfortable hearing myself and then finding some co-hosts as well.
Now, you do stream that live, so
Yeah.
you're using what, live stream, I think, for your video, and what other tools are you using to get that out live?
We started off actually using Ustream and their producer software, that free stuff. And I found that after a while, the Ustream software, if you're not a paid user, they throw those commercials in the middle of the broadcast, and so that was frustrating because we'd be cruising along during the show, and then all of a sudden in our chat room, people just saying, "Oh, there's a commercial. Oh, so they're missing good content," you know. So we switched over to live stream. We did that for most of the 2012 season, and this fall I'm making the switch, and I'll be using Google Hangouts on air. So that's what I'm using. I've got a Logitech C920 webcam. My co-hosts are in different cities, so that's another thing that I struggled with. So that's another reason why I'm switching over to the Hangouts on air. It's a lot easier, and I don't have to worry about switching camera shots and that sort of thing. It changes for you, so I don't have to worry about video production. I can strictly focus on content, getting the show in order, keeping it organized, and being a good host.
Very cool. Now, are you taking live phone calls, or just it's streamed live with you and your co-host?
We do have the ability to take live phone calls. A couple years ago, I signed up for a Google Voice account, and I got an awesome number. I really did get kind of lucky on this. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Bengals kind of rallying cry is Who Day, hence the name of our show, Who Day Weekly. And I just managed to get a Google Voice number, 404 Who Day 7, and it worked out perfectly. So we actually here this fall, I'm surprised at how many people call in, and I don't have a good way of doing it because it's forwarded to a Skype account. We'll be doing the show, and all of a sudden it'll pop up that somebody's calling, which is fine. But then when you have multiple people calling, there's nothing I can do. I don't have call waiting on Skype. I don't have the ability to add multiple callers. So that's still a work in progress. But we do have the ability for people to call in, and it's been a lot of fun meeting Bengals fans across the country.
Now, when the second person calls in and person number one has already called in, what do they get? A busy signal?
I think it rings until it gets to the voicemail.
Ah, interesting.
So, yeah, that's the kind of a bummer. We kind of have a little warning disclaimer note in our chat room that says, if you're trying to call and you don't get an answer, keep calling.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but people keep calling, and I think it's funny how it works out. I think actually here come this fall, I think from all the people that have said they wanted to call and couldn't, it actually is going to end up taking up most of the show now. So thanks for the content, guys. But no, it's cool. I think what's really neat about it is, if you don't live in Cincinnati, you don't have that way to voice your, which is a lot of time your displeasure. But the Bengals have been on a good run over the last couple of years. So we've had fans from California, Canada. We've got a fan who lives all the way over in England that has called in and been a part of the show. He stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning to record on a work night. That shows some dedication right there.
That's amazing. That's very cool. So what kind of microphone are you using? Or what have you gone through a series of microphones? Did you start off and just go to the top of the line, or what's been your travels through microphone?
I have a Heil PR40, Dave, believe it or not. I know.
You can podcast without a Heil PR40?
I know, it's a shocker, right? My first microphone was a condenser mic, Audio-Technica AT2020.
Yep.
I had the Electro Voice PL24, which is a dynamic microphone. And then I traded in that. I went to a Guitar Center. I traded in. I had three. I don't know why I had three AT2020s. I think at some point I was anticipating having multiple people in studio with me, and that just never worked out. So I traded all those in, and I got a Sennheiser E835 dynamic mic. So that's what I'm currently using right now.
Very cool. Sounds good.
Like I said, it didn't break the bank. I've always wanted a Heil PR40, but I also know that it's not necessary. And believe me, I'm not knocking the PR40, but I think that's more of a status thing. People see that you have a PR40 and think you're the real deal, which I get, but you don't need it.
Well, it's like I always say. I mean, right now the microphone I'm using because we're talking on Skype, is $37. It's an ATR 2100, and I've had it right next to a Heil PR40. I got to play with one for a little bit. And did the Heil PR40 sound better? Yes. Did it sound $250 better? Did it sound, $400 if you got the stand? No way. And so I always tell people, if you got the budget, sure. If you got, if you want to light your money on fire, by all means, go right ahead. But it's not, it's like you said, it's not 100% necessary. You can podcast without a Heil PR40.
Yeah. Again, I'm not knocking the microphone because it is a good mic, but I don't have it in my budget. Just to give you an example, the guy, Daryl Williams, who I interviewed, is using the microphone he got in Guitar Hero, the video game, the little or the Rock Band video game microphone that came with it. It's a USB mic, and it sounds fine.
Right.
So to each their own. Like I said, I went from a condenser mic where you could hear everything in the room around me to the dynamic microphones. And who knows? Maybe someday, if I'm getting a huge sponsor, maybe I'll break the bank on a PR40. But I'm not sweating it by any means.
Yeah, you're like me. I've come close numerous times, and then I'll be like, you know what? I think I'll pay off a bill instead.
Right.
Yeah.
Or use that money towards hosting, or or for me, Adobe Audition.
There you go. Now, do you do the cloud-based thing?
I did, or do,
Yeah.
yes.
That's actually because whatever version of Adobe I have, it's old. It's I think version 5. I think they're on 6 now or something like that.
And they're on 6. They're getting ready to launch 6.5 here in May. And for those of you who are on the cloud pay service, you'll get the automatic update. So for me, it was I had been using some real cheap software that I got many years ago, and it didn't allow for me to do multi-track editing, and so I was really missing out. I had no idea what I was missing out until I got Audition. I downloaded the demo, and after 2 weeks, Dave, I was like, whoa, I need this software. And so for me, it was well worth the it's only $19 a month. To me, it's worth it. And again,
That's less than $1 a day.
right. Now, it was a tough sell on the wife, but I was trying to sell her on doing the entire cloud, or all the services, because she's a graphic designer. And so I think for her, it would have been cool to have like Photoshop and Illustrator and all that other jazz, but she wasn't really too keen on that. But hey, for me, $19, well worth it.
There you go. Well, speaking of that, I would believe that she is the engine behind podcastcovers.com. Is that correct?
How did you know, Dave? Yes. She's the artist in the family. I'm more of the voice. And so for those of you who want to have some cool custom cover art done, podcastcovers.com. Check it out.
There you go. Well, what advice would you have for a new podcaster? So if somebody's, if somebody says, hey, I'm thinking of starting a podcast, and, maybe they look and they see that, hey, there are other podcasts similar to yours, or, I don't know anything about microphones or things like that. What advice would you give to the newbie?
Well, I guess it really depends on the content. If somebody's going to tell, and it's amazing how many people come to me with this question. People that are doing a sports podcast, and I cringe at that, Dave, because first of all, unless you're somebody from ESPN or you're a national personality and you have some credibility, your podcast is nothing. You might have a great show and great content, but nobody's going to listen to you because they're not going to find you. So for me, I tell people, look, start small. Because I did a sports podcast. It didn't work. And then I did a football podcast, and that didn't work. So then I switched to a strict team regarding one team, the Cincinnati Bengals, and I saw success. So for me, I always tell people, narrow your focus as much as you possibly can. You're going to find that built-in audience right away, and you're going to see the responses a lot quicker than you would if you were doing it just a general sports. So for me, number one, narrow your focus, and 2, podcast your passion. Those are like the golden rules in podcasting, I guess.
That is true. Very cool. And of course, where can we find all of your podcasts at?
You can check me out at spnt.tv. You can also find my Start Talking and Recording Today podcast at startpodcastingnow.com. And I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks for coming on the show.
I just have one question for you, Dave.
All right.
Will you be at New Media Expo in Vegas? I know it's either way.
Here's the thing. This is going to sound kind of weird. I'm going to submit to be a speaker.
Oh, join the club.
And if I'm speaking, definitely, obviously I'll be there. If not, I haven't decided yet.
All right.
It's still up in the air. Say what?
Well, I hope I get to see you there at least.
That would be cool. That's the only thing that I think about it, because it's kind of the convention that it's kind of like, if you don't go to that one, it's like, it's all the other ones are kind of up in the air. There's PodCamp Nashville and PodCamp Cincy maybe, and there was a PodCamp Cleveland, but it's kind of disappeared. So it's kind of like, well, I guess if I'm going to one, that would be the one to go to. So
yeah, my first time was this year. I really enjoyed it. I got to meet a lot of great people. You and I met at PodCamp Cincinnati, and then it was good to see you again in Vegas. So for those of you podcasters out there, if you're wondering, it's a good expo. I enjoy myself, and it's a great place to network. So keep it in mind.
Yeah, it definitely. I always kind of go, I'm not sure, and then I end up going. So I should probably just say I'm going.
Hoping to go because last year we were finalists in the podcast award, so that kind of helped.
Yeah.
But you never know. So hopefully we'll be there again this year.
Yeah, there you go. All right, man. Well, thanks much.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
And there you have it. I love it. He's interviewing kind of old timer kind of podcasters who have been around. He's interviewing brand new podcasters, so you get a completely fresh perspective on podcasting. Great stuff. You can find that at startpodcastingnow.com. And I am glad to know Nick. He's a good guy. We got on Skype, and I do the same thing. I actually just was interviewed by Daniel J. Lewis. I'm going to be on an episode of The Audacity to Podcast. I'll be talking about that in the future, who is another great guy. Also, depending on when you listen to this, Podcasters Roundtable, we'll be doing an episode of that with myself, Daniel, and Ray, and whoever Ray pulls in. That'll be coming up. And I will be on another few podcasts that I believe just got recorded today. I will let you know when those come out. If you want to have me on your podcast, people always, I kind of giggle when they go, would you be willing to come on my podcast and talk about podcasting? And I'm like, really? You don't have to ask me twice. I will do it. So thank you so much for Nick for taking the time to chat with us, and best of luck with your podcast. Now, if you're looking to start a podcast, I would love to help you. That's really what floats my boat, is helping people launch podcasts. And you can go over to the schoolofpodcasting.com. I've got step-by-step tutorials that'll walk you through the whole thing. I've got resources, and you got little old me to help you along the way. Now, if you already have a website, just go over, click on the Join Now button in the upper right-hand corner. If you don't have a website, send me an email, dave@schoolofpodcasting.com. And what I will do is I will send you a link to order your web hosting. That will earn a commission to me. I take that commission and I pay me, for lack of a better phrase, and I will go in and set up your website. I will install all the plugins to podcast. Everything will be set up. All you'll need to do is supply, obviously, graphics and your content. And then you're going to be like, but Dave, I don't know anything about WordPress. Well, yeah, you do, because the other part of that commission is going to go to pay for a free month at the School of Podcasting. And so basically you spend $8 on a web hosting service and you get a free month at the School of Podcasting, and you get your website set up. Pretty cool, huh? So if that's interested, if I have your attention with that, send me an email, quick start in the subject title. Send it to dave@schoolofpodcasting.com. And I am looking forward to talking to you again. I want to hear your comments on this, again, about the chit chat at the beginning of the show. Go out to everything we talked about today. You can find at schoolofpodcasting.com/351. And let me remind you that it is time to start living a life worth podcasting about. I thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you on the inside. Thanks for tuning in. God bless. Today on episode number 351 of the School of Podcasting's Morning Announcements, I always say that if you go to start a podcast and there are already people doing podcasts similar to yours, remember, they don't have your background. They don't have your experience. And today, we're talking with Snick. We're talking with Snick. Good old Snick. Snick Dog.